Now this is where it gets spooky. It gets spooky. And I mean this, like, I don't know if when it's all said and done, we're going to see all these players in the league. We're going to probably see more. We're going to see more than this in the league, if we're being honest. But I have to say, it's looking like Kelsey Mitchell, Camila Cardoso are guarantees.
Okay, this is wild. Look at that following list from Project B. That's no accident. They don't just follow players for fun. They follow players who've signed contracts. And what started as just 3 names has now absolutely exploded into a roster that's literally gutting both the WNBA offseason and Europe's top leagues. We're talking Kelsey Mitchell, Camila Cardoso, Marine Johannes. These aren't just depth pieces. These are absolute franchise cornerstones. And the way this leak came out tells us everything about how Project B is operating completely differently than its rival, Unrivaled.
Be in this league, as is Marine Johannes by the looks of things. It looks like it's going to be Marine Johannes, Jonquel Jones, Jewel Lloyd, Camila Cardoso. Jonquel Jones is getting that bag, by the way, from she is getting that bag from what's their names? From I'm blanking on their names. I'm blanking Fenerbahce. Because she didn't tear up her contract, she's just injured.
Now notice what he's doing there. He's not speculating. He's reading the evidence directly from Project B's social media strategy. When a league follows specific player accounts, that's not marketing research. That's actually announcement preparation. And the pattern here is totally unmistakable. Jonquel Jones, who's currently injured but still under contract with Fenerbahce in Turkey, just got a follow. Marine Johannes, who's been dominating in France, is on there. And then get this, the international expansion Lemon from China and Mai Yamamoto from Japan. This isn't just building a league. This is building a global product.
She's just injured and she's gone. But also, if you guys didn't see on Project B Global, they also follow Li Meng. So they follow, and then it's I blanked on her name, but she played for the Dallas Wings last year in preseason. And I think she plays for the Toyota Antelopes, I think. Mai Yamamoto. That's who it is. So they've followed Mai Yamamoto as well, who's really good, by the way. But Mai Yamamoto and Li Meng are the best players, arguably, in China and Japan. So they're going to bring in huge fan base.
Here's what makes those Asian signings absolutely brilliant from a business perspective. Li Meng isn't just one of China's best players. She's literally the face of women's basketball in a market of 1.4 billion people. And Mai Yamamoto? She brings Japan's entire basketball fan base with her. Unrivaled tried to sell itself on simply keeping American players stateside during the off-season, right? Project B said, forget that limiting strategy. We're going global from day one. They're paying top dollar and promising worldwide exposure. That's why they are absolutely winning this recruitment war. And then there's the European raid. Leonie Fibic and Janelle Soloione aren't exactly household names in America yet, but in EuroLeague, they are elite. Fibic plays for a top German club, and Soloione is one of the brightest young talents France has produced in years. Project B is systematically identifying the best players from every major basketball market, and then get this, writing checks big enough to pull them away from established leagues.
Best overall players, like, I don't know if I keep calling her Clara Lundqvist, but Clara Holm. I keep talking about her. There's a lot of people that I will keep, I'll be always talking about, like Valua Yai. But like, if you look at the league, maybe Josite stays there for development. I think Josite she's been unbelievable. She's been unbelievable. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Emma Messman in this league, because she's a mercenary. If you guys don't know about Emma Messman, she will literally play where.
That Emma Messman reference is absolutely crucial context. She's a former WNBA champion and even a finals MVP who spent the last several years playing wherever the money was best. Russia before the war, Turkey, China. She is the prototype for the modern basketball mercenary, and if Project B can land someone with her profile, someone with that international reputation, it sends a powerful message to every other player out there. This league is serious, it's well-funded, and it's willing to compete with any offer you've got on the table. The EuroLeague talent drain is real. Clarissa Dos Santos, who he mentions, is a Spanish guard who's been absolutely tearing up the European circuit. Valeria Berzhinska from Ukraine is another name that keeps popping up in international scouting reports. Project B isn't just taking WNBA players who want off-season money. They are targeting the absolute best talent from every single continent, which fundamentally changes what this league can actually become.
I mean, there's a good chance that if you've got Marine Johannes, there's a decent chance you've got Gabby Williams. There's a decent chance you'll get her eventually. And yeah, like this is a stacked roster so far. Kelsey Mitchell, Cardoso, like this is so far looking like it's going to be as stacked a roster. It's as stacked a roster as you're going to get outside of like Stewie, and if Stewie and Fee aren't going to be in it. But I wonder what's going to happen if Stewie and Fee end up in that as well.
That Gabby Williams speculation isn't random either. Marine Johannes and Gabby Williams have actually played together professionally in France. They have chemistry, they know each other's games, and if you're building a league that wants to compete with WNBA level talent, pairing them makes absolute tactical sense. Williams is one of the few players who successfully leveraged European contracts against WNBA offers. She sat out part of the 2024 WNBA season because the money overseas was just better. That's exactly the type of player Project B wants, someone who's already proven they will choose the bigger paycheck. And here's where it's really interesting for the Fever. Kelsey Mitchell taking less money to play in Unrivaled this year supposedly meant she stayed loyal to that league's vision. But apparently, that loyalty has limit. Project B came in with a better offer, a better structure, and frankly, better global exposure. Mitchell reportedly had a clause in her Unrivaled contract that would cost her $25,000 if she played the full season. Some kind of conflict with Fever obligation. But let's be real, that's pocket change compared to what Project B is likely paying her.
Like, I wonder what Angel's doing I wonder what Angel Reese is doing basketball-wise. I miss Angel Hoops watching highlights, like, but she's not in Unrivaled. Is she gonna enter Unrivaled? Like, that would have been the funniest thing for Unrivaled. Like, I mean this, they should do like a Royal Rumble. I know they all have their entrance musics for the one-on-one, but it should be like a Royal Rumble, where you play up to 5 points, and whoever enters first versus 30th, you keep playing. You just keep playing 1v1 up to 3 points. Let's go up to 3 points. You can have the 1v1 competition, but then you have the Royal Rumble as like a different event where you play 1v1 up to 3 points, 2s and 1s. If you've won the previous game, you start with the ball, but you get more tired as it goes on. And whoever wins the Rumble wins the Rumble.
Okay, the Royal Rumble idea is silly, but it highlights something incredibly important. Unrivaled is a gimmick league. It's 3-on-3 basketball with entrance music and made-for-TV drama. Now that works for short-term attention, but it's not real basketball. Project B, on the other hand, is offering 5-on-5 full rosters, actual team dynamics. That's what serious players want. That's what international audiences will watch. And that's why the talent is flowing toward Project B instead of staying with Unrivaled. Think about what Unrivaled promised. Stay in the United States. Avoid overseas travel, play a shorter season, make decent money. That appealed to players who were tired of spending winters in Turkey, or Russia, or China. But Project B totally flipped the script. They said, "We'll pay you more than overseas, we'll give you global exposure instead of hiding you domestically, and we'll play real basketball instead of a modified game." It's just a better pitch to elite players who want to maximize both their earnings and their development. The fact that Angel Reese isn't in Unrivaled this year tells you something too. She's one of the biggest names in women's basketball right now. Someone who could absolutely drive viewership and social media engagement. If Unrivaled can't lock her down, what does that say about their ability to truly compete with Project B's resources?
Come out to the John Cena music. One of them better come out to the John Cena music, but I know. Obviously that's not going to be happening. But yeah, it's an interesting thing here. But it does look like they got a lot of this. They got a lot of Unrivaled players. It looks like Unrivaled's done. Like I would not be surprised. I genuinely think Unrivaled might be finished. I think there's a good chance that that Unrivaled is just done as a concept.
Now that assessment might sound harsh, but honestly, just look at the evidence. Unrivaled's entire value proposition was convenience and novelty. Project B is offering legitimacy and a whole lot of money. And when you're a professional athlete trying to maximize your earning window, legitimacy and money win every single time. The 3-on-3 format is fine for an exhibition or a weekend tournament. Sure, but it's not real professional basketball. Scouts don't evaluate you on 3-on-3 tape. International leagues don't care about your half-court stats. Project B is building something that actually matters for player development and long-term careers. And the timing is brutal for Unrivaled. They launched first, they got some buzz, they signed some names, but they didn't move fast enough or pay enough to lock players into long-term deals. Now Project B comes in with deeper pockets, better infrastructure, and a global vision, and suddenly Unrivaled's roster is getting poached before the league even finishes its first season. So here's what this means for the WNBA and the broader landscape of women's basketball. For years, the off-season equation was simple. WNBA players went overseas because that's where the money was. Russia paid the best, so stars like Brittany Griner and Breanna Stewart spent their winters in Yekaterinburg. Turkey, China, and various European leagues absorbed everyone else who wanted to supplement their WNBA salary. The league didn't really like it because players came back tired, sometimes injured, and the overseas commitments occasionally created scheduling conflicts. Unrivaled was supposed to solve that problem by creating a domestic alternative. Play in the US, stay fresh, avoid the risks of international travel and foreign leagues. But Unrivaled made a critical miscalculation. They assumed players cared more about convenience than money. Project B looked at that assumption and said, no, players want both money and legitimacy. So they structured a league that pays better than Europe, plays real 5-on-5 basketball, and offers global exposure through international market. The Kelsey Mitchell signing is the perfect example of how this plays out. She's coming off a career year with the Fever, averaging 19.2 points per game, and helping Caitlin Clark's rookie season become a playoff run. Mitchell is 28 years old, right in the middle of her prime earning year. She needs to maximize income now because WNBA careers are short and the financial security window is narrow. Unrivaled offered her something, but apparently not enough to keep her from listening when Project B came calling. Camila Cardoso is even more interesting because she's a rookie. She was the 3rd overall pick in the 2024 draft, went to Chicago, and immediately became their starting center. She's 6'7", she's skilled, and she's exactly the type of young player the WNBA wants to build around. The fact that she's already looking at off-season alternatives tells you that even rookies understand the financial reality. WNBA salaries alone just aren't enough. Cardoso's rookie contract pays her around $7. That's not poverty, but it's also not life-changing money for someone with her talent level. If Project B is offering her $200,000 or $300,000 for a few months of work, of course she's taking it. Marine Johannes is the international wild card. She's played in the WNBA before, had stints with New York and Phoenix, but she's made her real money in France playing for Bourges and Lyon. She's a 6-foot guard who can shoot, handle, and create. In Europe, she's a star. In the WNBA, she was a rotation player. Project B is betting that players like Johannes, who are elite in international competition but haven't quite broken through in America, will jump at the chance to play in a well-funded league that treats them like franchise players instead of role players. Jonquel Jones is the biggest name on this list, and potentially the most problematic for the WNBA. She's a former MVP, a champion with Las Vegas, and one of the most skilled big women in basketball. She's currently under contract with Fenerbahce in Turkey, but is sitting out with an injury. The fact that she's already being followed by Project B suggests they've either already signed her or they're very, very close. Jones is 30 years old and has been vocal about player compensation issues. She's exactly the type of veteran star who could legitimize Project B by lending her name and reputation to a startup league. The Asian expansion strategy is fascinating because it's something the WNBA has talked about but frankly never really executed. Li Meng is a 6'2" forward who's dominated the Chinese league for years. She's played in the WNBA before with Minnesota and had some success, but the real story is her marketability in China. If Project B can broadcast games into the Chinese market with Li Meng as a featured player, they tap into an audience that absolutely dwarfs anything available in the United States. The same logic applies to Mai Yamamoto in Japan. She's not WNBA caliber yet, but she doesn't need to be. She brings an entire country's worth of potential viewers. The European signings, Fibic, Solayoni and potentially others, represent a direct challenge to EuroLeague's dominance. For decades, Europe has been the destination for women's basketball players who wanted to make real money. The top clubs in Turkey, Russia, and Spain paid better than the WNBA and offered a higher level of competition than most American domestic leagues. Project B is trying to flip that dynamic by offering European-level money with better exposure and a more modern media approach. Now let's talk about what this means for Unrivaled specifically. They launched with a lot of buzz in January 2024, backed by Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier as co-founders. The pitch was compelling. Stay in the US, play 3-on-3, make decent money, get equity in the league. They signed some solid names: Lexi Brown, Jordan Canada, Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young. The games are being broadcast, the production quality is good, and the concept works as entertainment. But here's the problem. Unrivaled is a novelty league built on convenience, and Project B is a professional league built on competition and compensation. When those two models go head-to-head for talent, the professional model wins every single time. Players will choose 5-on-5 over 3-on-3 because that's real basketball. They'll choose higher pay over equity promises because cash today beats theoretical ownership value tomorrow. And they'll choose global exposure over domestic convenience because international markets are where the growth potential actually exists. The fact that Kelsey Mitchell is reportedly jumping from Unrivaled to Project B is the clearest signal yet that Unrivaled's model is vulnerable. Mitchell was one of their cornerstones, someone who bought into the vision, but when a better offer came along, she took it. That's not disloyalty, that's professionalism. And if Mitchell is leaving, how many others are having similar conversations with Project B? The $25,000 penalty Mitchell faces for playing the full Unrivaled season is interesting because it suggests there were conflicts built into these contracts from the beginning. Maybe it was scheduling overlap with fever obligations, maybe it was concerns about injury risk or something else. Either way, the fact that the penalty exists and is apparently small enough that Mitchell is willing to pay it tells you the contracts weren't ironclad. Players kept their options open, and now Project B is exploiting that flexibility. So what happens to Unrivaled if they lose their best players? The league is in its first season, still trying to establish itself, still trying to prove the model works. If Project B poaches half their roster, does Unrivaled survive? Do they pivot to signing younger players, rookies, international players who aren't quite WNBA level? Do they try to compete financially, even though their funding model probably can't match what Project B is offering? Or do they accept a Tier 2 status and position themselves as a developmental league or a supplementary option rather than the primary offseason destination? The WNBA has to be watching this closely because it affects their players, their schedule, and their leverage. For years, the league has argued that player salaries are constrained by revenue. We'd pay you more if we made more money, they say. But now there are multiple offseason leagues bidding for talent, which proves there's more money in women's basketball than the WNBA has been willing to acknowledge. If Project B can afford to pay Kelsey Mitchell $300,000 for 3 months of work, why is the WNBA only paying her $100,000 for 6 months? The answer, of course, is that the WNBA has chosen to prioritize other expenses over player salary. That's a business decision, and maybe it's the right one for long-term league stability, but it creates an opening for competitors. Project B doesn't have the overhead the WNBA has. They don't have 12 teams to support. They don't have decades of institutional infrastructure. They don't have collective bargaining agreements constraining their salary structure. They can be nimble, aggressive, and player-focused in ways the WNBA simply can't. This is the same dynamic that's playing out in men's sports with leagues like LEV Golf and various international basketball leagues. When you have deep-pocketed investors willing to spend aggressively to acquire talent, established leagues get disrupted. The WNBA's advantage is history, infrastructure, and the connection to the NBA's resources. Project B's advantage is flexibility, money, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. So where does this end? Best case for the WNBA, Project B operates as a complementary off-season league that keeps players sharp, pays them well, and doesn't create scheduling conflicts. Players make more money overall, the WNBA benefits from having better conditioned athletes, and everyone wins. Worst case, Project B becomes a competitor that poaches stars, creates loyalty conflicts, and forces the WNBA into a bidding war. It truly can't win. The smart money is probably somewhere in between. Project B will establish itself as a legitimate off-season option, sign enough talent to be credible, and force the WNBA to increase salaries faster than they otherwise would have. Unrivaled either adapts or folds. European leagues lose some players but retain others, and players end up with more options and more money, which is ultimately good for everyone involved in women's basketball. But the Kelsey Mitchell signing is the moment this all became real. Up until now, Project B was theoretical, lots of talk, some social media follows, but no confirmed signing. Now we have proof they're actually signing players, actually competing for talent, and actually executing on their vision.